All right, so today we're taking a look at 3 new projects. So we have the Iris, Hypno, and Focus. This is the eye fiber series. I did follow a tutorial to make this. I followed a tutorial from MTR Animation, which, he went in depth on how to create this, and he did had a lot of nice renders. I mean, this looks sick. I love the composition that he was able to achieve with that. So yeah, he did go in depth with all of the setup. So I highly recommend you to watch this to learn more about the specific setup and the math that's happening, because he does a great job explaining what everything does. But I did try to simplify the project files for you, so we're going to take a look at this right now. I want to talk a little bit about the series as a whole. As you can see, the first one came out really nice. I had a nice thing. And the idea behind the 3-day series is that, I'm trying to create a setup. So one setup that I'll be able to work on the next 2 days, or 3 days in total. And the idea is to change the original setup enough to be able to have a different render in the end of the day. And I had a hard time trying to modify the original setup. So as you can see, the second project looks great as well, but the third one took me a while. I spent a lot of hours trying to make something different from the same original setup, and I really had a hard time, and it came out like this. So it's not a great render. I'm not really proud of that, but that's the premise of doing every day. Sometimes it's just not gonna look great, and it is what it is. But yeah, let's get inside of the first project. As you can see, I love the way I organized everything, and I did remember to add here the tutorial inside of the project file. So as you can see, you have a link here. I tried to explain a little bit what I did, because I optimized everything and created custom groups so that it's just easier to work around with. And I did this for myself as well, because I knew that I was going to work with this setup for 2 more days. So I had to figure out a way to kind of optimize everything so I know what everything does. First of all, I'm going to talk about the scene setup. So I created the whole eyeball just like he showed in his tutorial, even though I ended up just rendering the fiber side of things. So if I go into my camera, this is what I am focusing on. But I do have the whole eyeball that you can copy. So this is it if you want to use this inside of another project of yours. So we have our first fiber layer, and I'm going to try to put just this here. This is the first layer, and as you can see, I added the settings that you will need the most to be able to change some things around. This is the resolution. So this is the amount of curves that you have in the iris. The count is the point count of each curve. So you can define more points to make the curves more smooth. The first fiber layer is going to a set position. And as you can see here, we have another offset layer custom group, and we have 2 different scale. So I tried to take my time to figure out what the 2 different scale does, because I couldn't really remember what they do. But the first scale, as you can see, is a scale math vector node, and this will scale all of the curves together. And if you increase this, the scale will be applied to the mesh as a whole. But if you scale the second scale slider, this will scale up or down the noise that is applied to each individual curves. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But in his tutorial, he kind of, explained how to pretty much work with this. So yeah, let's get inside of the offset node. And as you can see, this is the setup. We have our front curve to adjust the curvature of the iris. If you want a flat look, you can see that now the iris is flat. I think now you can see a little bit better. So I'm going to close my eye so we can have just the iris. And as you can see, this is what the first scale does. So it's going to scale up and down our curves. If I set this to 0, it will be flat, but if I add just a little bit, maybe 0.04, we're going to have some displacement on the z-axis. So yeah, that's the z-axis, and that's the scale on each individual curve. So yeah, this goes inside of a resample curve where you can resample just to be able to optimize the points. And we have another custom group controls the scale of the pupil, as you can see here. And if we go inside of that group is this setup right here. And the only setting that you need to care about here is the scale element. All right, so that's the first fiber layer. The second one is, it has a different setup. So I'm gonna put this here so you can see what it does. So I just followed the tutorial, and this is kind of another way to create these curves with another process which utilize the repeat zone. I won't explain what this does because it's a little bit complicated. There's a lot of moving parts to it, but you can play around with the option that I created here so you can see what's happening. We have another offset layer, which is exactly the same as the first one. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm doing a great job explaining what's happening, but you know, this is kind of what's happening when you are trying to follow a tutorial along from people that are more knowledgeable on the subject. But yeah, that's why I created these custom groups. I'm gonna add everything back together, and as you can see, we have our first fiber layer, the second one, and I then duplicated the second one a couple of times to be able to have a nice iris look. And after that, I created the eyeball as well. I added my two lights, and in the shader, I just play around with the color ramp using the ramp generator, of course. And we have a couple of mixes here up happening. So I did follow the tutorial exactly. So there's a lot of things happening here, which controls the alpha material. So as you can see here, everything is fed to an alpha just to be able to smooth out the end point of our fiber. This looks pretty nice. And we have the same thing, but from the other side, as you can see here, the nice fading. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's take a look at the second project. All right, so as you can see here, we have the exact same setup, but in this case, since I wanted to add colors to all the different layers of fibers, I decided to just duplicate the resample curve and the mesh custom node here and add different material to each layers. So in this case, I was able to control the color ramp from the 4 different layers. So I did try to play around with different settings here that I already had on the controls. So yeah, that's pretty much how I was able to create this. Let's take a look at the third project. So this is the one I had a really hard time with because, again, you know, there's not 1,000 ways to make these kind of eyes. So I thought I would play around with the pupil size. And yeah, so in this case, I just duplicated a bunch of time the custom groups and change the pupil size to be able to have this layered iris. Again, with different texture for each section. And this is what we have. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this 3-day series. Again, you know, it's really hard to try to explain the work of somebody else. All the credits goes to MTR Animation with his tutorial. I just copied it and tried to, you know, modify some stuff, optimize some node setup. But apart from that, I hope these files are helpful. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.